Last video, we watched Gen.G throw their 9-6 lead on Icebox and lose 7 straight rounds against Team Heretics. Team Heretics were able to poke a hole in Gen.G's gameplay by leaning into retakes, and Gen.G started to exhibit some of the same problems that other Asian Valorant teams before them had with post plans. But best of 5 series are all about which team can adapt and learn faster than their opponents. So in this video, we're going to break down the back and forth chess match between the IGLs and coaching staff of Gen.G and Team Heretics during the final 3 maps of the Masters Shanghai Grand Final. Ascent was a chance for Gen.G to completely reset after their disappointing loss on Icebox. This time, Gen.G start an attack, and I love watching their pistol strats because they flow so smoothly from start to finish. They begin this round with 2 players in tiles, 2 players top mid, and 1 player holding a main. This allows them to immediately contest mid with 4 players, and Meteor even has a molly lineup for what looks like the market door. They invest all their initiator utility to ensure full control of mid. This could have given them an opening fight, but their main goal is to just gain the attention of both defensive rotators, which works perfectly as they both move towards spawn. Now, this creates a timing where Benji Fishy is left all alone on A, and Gen.G are immediately in a position to punish those defensive rotations by going for an A split through Cat. You might think that Gen.G's plan failed because Benji Fishy is still alive when his teammates make it over. But at this level, when you create extra seconds of timing, it makes a huge difference. Firstly, Heretics have lost complete control of Cat and Tree, so they have no choice but to flood through Heaven. And they even use Omen Blind because they're scared of Tree. Then, Heretics throw this common Omen smoke to help defend back site, but Munchkin already has complete control of that spot and is ready to swing out of it. These slight timing advantages that Gen.G created through their fake control of mid turns the fast flood attempt into a complete failure. This leads to Gen.G's 5th straight pistol round win of the series, and since they were able to plant the bomb and save a sheriff, they're in a very strong position to snowball their economy again. They play a standard anti-eco setup using Killjoy utility to hold a push into A main and mid, while the rest of the team is preparing to counter push B if Heretics decide to push mid or A main. Heretics throw an adjusted KO knife which lands in A main very late, and are planning to use that information to rotate, but as soon as Munchkin sees this, he understands that this must be the perfect timing to go back to A. Gen.G still have that Sova drone to clear A, and just watch how patient they are waiting for the drone to clear deep, because if it's shot down early, Gen.G still have the chance to cancel and go back to B. The post plant doesn't really go as smoothly as Gen.G are hoping, but they can still save their rifle into round 3. Now, this is the big chance for Gen.G to snowball their lead again. They start by challenging the A main one way using Omen TP, and Heretics give up control pretty easily of A main. Heretics know that Omen has been lurking A alone, so Gen.G are faking the lurk by letting Charon peek first and then walking up behind him. Patitek throws a knife, but it's too late and he's surprised when 3 players are triple swinging with a flash over top. Gen.G try to transition this kill immediately into an execute, but when Texture dies, all their momentum is stopped. From here, Gen.G rotate back towards B, but you can see that Heretics make the wrong read to lean towards A. Try to remember this pattern as it's gonna come up a little bit more during this series. Benji Fishy is completely overwhelmed and no one on Heretics can help him, giving Gen.G complete control of B for a post plant. This time you can see that Gen.G are all on the same page and decide to fight together on the first entry. Watch how Gen.G collectively reset after they've done enough to win the round to ensure that Boo has absolutely no chance to clutch. Another 3rd round victory for Gen.G, which leads into a clean 4th round using the Killjoy ult from B main. Okay, but what even happened for Heretics to lose these rounds? Apart from the pistol round, it didn't really seem like Gen.G did anything special, and kept going from B main to A main, back to B main, to A main again, and then back to B main. And Gen.G kept getting big advantages from it. If we take a closer look at Team Heretics and their defensive setups so far, they took a passive approach to map control and lacked reliable information to make good reads. In round 1, they look like they want some control of A main, but give it up really quickly once their KO knife scans nothing and Gen.G start to make noise mid. In round 2, Patitek throws a late knife and over-rotates on this info again, allowing Gen.G to walk up A main a second time. In round 3, Boo makes an attempt to fight for A main, but Heretics are not committed to contesting it, so he backs off. This allows Gen.G to walk up unknowingly a 3rd time and gives them another opening into the round. Even though Heretics saw 4 players in A main, they keep making passive rotates through their spawn and never use that opportunity to get any information or control elsewhere on the map. This results in the incorrect read of an A hit and another lost round for Team Heretics. But you can see that Heretics are realizing they were wrong and are adapting by round 4, because now they have 2 players who look committed to fighting for A main no matter what. Unfortunately, they simply lose to a Killjoy ult that Gen.G are able to use to force out onto B. This is probably why no timeout was called, because their coach knew they were starting to make the right adaptations. Now in round 5, Heretics are determined to fight for control of A main, and do not allow Charon to take the same solo peek as last time. All of Gen.G disrespect the one-way and get completely wiped out by Heretics. This was an amazing adaptation, and we can see the effects of this play for future rounds. In the next round, Gen.G are working up Cat to do another mid split. Heretics are maintaining their control of A main, but once they hear the execute come up Cat, both players on A prepare to fight for it. Patitech makes a really sick play with this KO ult to bait for Boo sitting in the corner. This works perfectly as he goes unchecked, and this gives Heretics an opening to win the fight in tree. But this entire play was only possible because Heretics showed that they weren't scared to fight for A main last round. The one player that would completely ruin this play by Heretics is Lakia in A main, but he's showing extra caution. Now we're starting to see a slight issue with Gen.G's attack side game plan. They seem to rely too much on having A main control to run their attack, and aren't using mid in many creative ways. If Heretics are able to manage control of A main properly, Gen.G will start to run out of good options and become easily readable. In the next round, Gen.G are now forcing their control of A main by throwing more utility at the problem. They invest Omen Blind and Jet Dash, but can't get any kills and are now stuck behind mollies and smokes. Since Gen.G have no mid control to do anything interesting, all they can do is rotate back to B, where they just have a much weaker execute without that Jet Dash or Omen Blind. Now keep in mind that the alarm bot in mid has been untouched, and the Killjoy turret is always holding a deep angle into B main, giving Heretics more time and info to make the correct rotates, and you can understand why they're able to commit to sites in this round. Even though Meteor eventually gets to a market lurk spot late into the round, you want these positions as early as possible because it takes time to make these positions work. His team is already down a duelist and don't have any utility left to create pressure for his lurk, and Heretics know that all they need to do with 35 seconds left is to wait on site. Gen.G take a timeout after this round to try and figure out the problem, but we're not gonna see anything new to tackle their lack of mid control. Gen.G are still in that super stale 1-4 setup, desperate for that A main control, and watch how Patitech is learning how to scare Gen.G and play around with them without ever putting himself in real danger. Again, take note how Heretics are happy to give up mid and just commit to sites. Gen.G have completely lost their momentum in this map, but finally we're going to see them probe into mid as a real default in the next round. Heretics are reading into this perfectly by setting up an op play from Woot near arches. This is a really smart call, but also a little bit of a risk because they're making significant changes to their setup and adding some variability into the round. Even though Heretics go up 2 kills in this exchange, we're seeing that mid pressure actually give Gen.G a timing to work up A main. This turns into a 2v3 post plant that Heretics could have played a bit better. Both Gen.G players are confirmed to be on site, but the door was never broken by Heretics, and Gen.G can focus all their attention towards fighting Heaven. It's just funny that even in a round where Gen.G actually contests mid on their default, their ultimate goal still ended up being taking A main control, and it results in another winning round. Gen.G experiment with a B split for one round, which goes pretty badly, mainly because of a really good solo ult from Rienz. But in the next round, they're straight back into the same stale 1-4 setup that kept getting them stuck. At this point, the alarm bot mid and turret in B main have never been broken by Gen.G on the default. Team Heretics also makes a really sick read to go back to exactly what they were doing before, which is leaving mid open and committing to defending A main. Even though their general setup is similar, Heretics keep finding unique ways to play it out, and this time we see Patitech hiding in Wine for the first time with support from Woot on the cross with an op. Gen.G lose another round because they cannot get A main control for free, and on the last round of the half, Heretics make one final adjustment. This is the first round that Patitech is playing to give up A main completely, because they can play retake on A with the Killjoy ult. That also means that Heretics can commit hard to a trap play on the other side of the map, and Gen.G are sent through the meat grinder for once again leaving the alarm bot untouched in mid. Gen.G had a strong start, but it was Heretics who adapted first, and Gen.G never figured out a tactical solution to the problem, but we can never count out Gen.G's mechanical ability to bail them out. Gen.G works all the way back to A, and it's again funny to see that every round where Gen.G are given complete free control of A main just turns out great for them. Lakia times a perfect flank up into heaven with a Munchkin spray down, and it's crazy how often Gen.G can just win these rounds off of great fighting alone. Even though Gen.G were able to steal one round back at the end of the half, Heretics knew they were winning tactically, and this is very important to bring into the next half. It's a little bit ironic that the way Heretics are defaulting on attack is exactly what Gen.G needed to do in the first half, and Heretics pull it off phenomenally. Heretics have a two-stage approach to taking mid while managing information on the extremities. First, they start with a smoke to help take control of arches, paired with a Sova dart, and are able to get a kill on Texture solo peeking Cat. Meanwhile, they throw a KO knife to maintain control of A main, and have Killjoy utility to maintain control of B. This is all to buy time for their mid default, which now moves into the second phase by moving the Omen smoke up to bottom mid so they can work into market. 3 players are also ready to go up B main, and Heretics have smoothly transitioned this into a B split. Heretics basically showed Gen.G how to play from mid, but they aren't done yet. In round 15, they've got another variation with a Molly lineup for Pizza, which gives them full control of market again. And then in round 16, we're seeing Heretics continue defaulting mid and are able to break the alarm bot within the first 20 seconds of the round. They ultimately transitioned this market control into another solid B split and a big round win. Now these are the perfect conditions for an IGL to make a crazy read. And finally in round 17, after Heretics have fully convinced Gen.G to fight for mid, as you can see 3 members preparing for a trap, do Heretics choose to switch it up and run that 1-4 setup to take A main control, which is now left open for them. This is what happens when a great IGL has a read on the flow of the game. And now we're seeing some snowball action from Heretics as well. One thing to note is that after this, there were a couple rounds where Heretics strayed away from their mid defaults and went for forced fights and executes, but this always turned out bad for them because it naturally gave Gen.G those big fighting opportunities, which they love. Keep this idea in mind because it will come back later on in the series. Heretics take a good timeout and immediately go back to their methodical defaults, which continued to work for them. Heretics were just so good at suffocating Gen.G out of mid with smart utility usage, then just choosing the perfect timings to mix up their gameplay and take back A main control, which would catch Gen.G completely off guard. Unlike the first 2 maps on defense, Gen.G were not able to find those big traps and fights because of how Heretics were defaulting on Ascent. This results in a very important map win for Heretics, putting them up 2-1 in the series. The momentum has tipped towards Heretics ever since the second half on Icebox, and Gen.G have no choice but to get it back on Lotus or this series is over. But the start of the match does not look too good for them. Gen.G still haven't regained that same confidence that we saw on Breeze or Icebox, and continued to let Heretics slow play around the entire map, with their main play being the Seize Nade combo in B main. This might have been a pre-planned counter strat, as the last time that Heretics played Lotus, they opened with 3 players walking down B main. However, immediately committing to this type of trap play gives a lot of space away to attackers. That means that Heretics can just pick up where they left off on Ascent and play a longer, slower default. They start by taking Mound and leaving Benji Fishy there to maintain control of it. The rest of Heretics move back towards A. Gen.G stay committed to their trap on B, while Heretics are able to walk all the way up A main. When they finally hit the site, Gen.G's rotators are super late, but still try to flood out, and this results in a pretty bad fight. Lotus becomes the first map where Gen.G aren't able to start out with the lead, but also the first map where Gen.G aren't aggressive from the very first round. Gen.G are relying on a utility trap counter strat to open up the map, rather than playing to their team fighting strengths. But I believe that if they won the round this way, Gen.G would have lost the grand final and mastered Shanghai altogether, because losing this round snapped Gen.G out of their identity crisis, and starting from round 3 they went back to playing their style. Gen.G commit hard to a full-out fight in A main, but Heretics are also buying into this, which is weird because it's the opposite of what's been working for them. Heretics managed to trade down into a final 2v2. Gen.G attempt to double hold the swing out of tree, but they line up and lose the round. However, if we objectively look at the round, both the fight in A main and the double hold situation are finally scenarios where Gen.G feel comfortable. This feels so much better than the slow chokeouts they experienced during Ascent, and this is where Gen.G starts to build back their confidence. Now Heretics immediately go back to their slower default, but Gen.G had a little taste of what fighting felt like again and aren't gonna let Heretics do whatever they want. Watch this 300 IQ proactive defense from Gen.G, where they start with Fade and Omen in A main, who throw utility at the entrance to fake control. Lakia immediately rotates to C after throwing his Fade Eye, because Gen.G's real plan is to force Heretics towards Mound. Now Gen.G can run a late round trap play and use the C's nade combo to do it, but Heretics have been cautious this entire time and are able to avoid it. But instead of rotating back towards A after seeing 3 Gen.G players in Mound, Heretics decide to force the fight back, and Gen.G have been absolutely feasting on these situations all series. Finally, Gen.G have gotten Heretics to play their game, and it's crazy to see how this round completely breaks apart the disciplined and patient playstyle that Heretics were delicately nurturing for the last 2 maps. Suddenly, Heretics are taking all-out brawls. In round 5, they fight on B, with Heretics players being the ones playing a little bit too aggressively before the bomb is even planted. Then we see a careless, forced push in round 6 where they go through so much defender utility on C. The slow style that's been working for them takes a lot of patience and discipline, but now it's getting late into the series and anybody would get impatient playing slow against Gen.G, who are always looking to fight whether it's good or bad. In round 7, all 5 Heretics players force themselves out through A main and get destroyed by the utility dump. And then it happens again in round 8, where they send all 5 players into A main with no other play on the map. They keep setting themselves up for these meat grinder situations that just keep feeding Gen.G's confidence. Heretics call a much needed timeout after this round, but Gen.G finally returns to the same C's nade trap in B main that completely failed them on round 1, but after all those rounds of crazy aggression towards A and C, this trap actually works and destroys any confidence Heretics may have gotten back. Now it's Heretics who are completely lost, and we're only able to win 3 attack rounds on the most attack-sided map in the game. Heretics have one last chance on the pistol round to bring it back, but they end up giving Gen.G all the control they want and opt for a full 5v5 retake on B. We know that they really abused retakes against Gen.G on Icebox, but now that Gen.G have regained their confidence and aren't desperately forcing fights, they are patiently waiting for their opportunity to fight back. And they find a great fight in A link, which causes the entire retake and map to crumble. Gen.G were able to rediscover themselves just in time for the last map, and everything comes down to map 5 on Split. Gen.G starts this map on attack while Heretics start on defense, and we're gonna see Heretics unfortunately start to make some of the same defensive mistakes they've already made in this series. Heretics have a tendency where they overcommit to certain sites a bit too early in the round and give up control of the extremities. This is how they lost those early rounds on Ascent, where Gen.G would be able to play for A main control and also rotate out of it freely. We'll start to see a similar pattern on Split, but Gen.G's stratbook also just counters the way that Heretics are playing defense. And let me explain what I mean. Just like on Ascent, Gen.G don't care about mid at the start of the round, and play to gain control of B main and A main. Heretics don't really have elaborate setups to defend these areas, which allows Gen.G to break the Cypher Cam on B. In A main, a small fight breaks out, but it's traded back immediately. Heretics look for a little bit of a reclear into A main, but eventually decide to back off and give up complete control of Heaven in order to stack towards the site. This puts them out of position, and Gen.G are able to rotate through vents to hit Benji Fishy left alone on B. Doesn't this round look super familiar to this other round on Ascent? Anyway, this turns into a 3v3 post plant, but but Charon makes a mistake and dies early. Watch how Gen.G played the 2v3. Texture jiggle peeks one side of the pillar to get info and draw attention, then immediately swings the other side with his teammate to take a 2v2. This small team play gives Meteor a good 1v1 opportunity, and he's able to win a massive round for Gen.G. And Gen.G continued to punish this passive playstyle from Heretics during their gun round. They're allowed to take full control of B main, forcing out the smoke for the entrance. Now Heretics have no idea if they're still there or not, while Gen.G walk back towards A. When Gen.G are preparing to hit A, you can still see 4 players spread out and leaning towards B. And Gen.G can freely scale all the way up A main and all the way to site, where Benji Fishy has to deal with a straight 1v5. Heretics didn't even get a chance to do anything on their gun round, and they already have to call the save, earning Gen.G that massive 3rd round win and leading to another 4-0 map start in this series. A timeout is really needed for Heretics, and although they made some slight adjustments after this timeout, they really weren't able to fix the core issue. In round 6, Heretics go for the A main push and are able to punish the solo lurking Meteor. This leads to one rotator being able to stack towards B and actually results in their first round of the map. But Heretics were never able to solve Gen.G's control of B main. In round 8, Gen.G are using utility to force themselves into B main, while Heretics are not truly committing to fighting for it. On the other side of the map, A main is left open again, and this results in a similar scenario where Gen.G can make the long rotate all the way back to A, while Heretics have no reliable info to ever leave B. Last time this happened, Heretics sent the Skydog way too late into B main and were not able to get info on time. This round, they're going to do it a little bit earlier, but Gen.G are so on top of that, and Charon sticks around to kill the dog immediately. This keeps Heretics in their setup for a bit longer. Gen.G don't actually go straight into an A hit this round and play with the pace of the execute multiple times. Watch just how confused Heretics are. You can see how many times that Heretics run back and forth through their spawn, and when they finally do hit A, they have so much control that Heretics aren't able to do anything. I think it's safe to say that Heretics are completely lost, and this map has already spiraled out of control, but we get one last timeout from them to hopefully save it. Finally, we're seeing a coordinated attempt to take B main, but Gen.G are seriously so creative with their strats and calling. This round, Gen.G run a fake towards A with all the main utility from Sky, Raze, and Omen selling it perfectly. Viper and Cypher lurking in B main can even hear the 2 rotators leave, and on this cue, they challenge the one-way with Omen ulting into backside for the crossfire into B main. Heretics made a reasonable adjustment, but it was far too late because Gen.G are just another step ahead. The lurks from A even prevent Heretics from saving any guns at all, and for me, this was the final nail in the coffin for this match and series. The lesson of this final is definitely to make sure you stay disciplined and win those anti-ecos that you need to. And that's how Gen.G made history and became the first Asian Valorant team to win a VCT championship. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.